Trying to be a mukbanger. Hello. This is a very dirty cup. Milk. And I am eating sushi today. Why? Because it is eclipse season and my will to live is minimal. Oof, gotta work that angle. I was really hoping that these rolls would be really tiny, but they made them really big. Like, that's a massive tuna roll. I was thinking they were gonna be like little. So I read this book in the month of April. Apparently, like, it's really not okay to put your wasabi in soy sauce. Like, culturally, like, it's, I don't know if it's seen as rude or if it's just like not something that you're supposed to do. But I do this because I just like spicy soy sauce. And yeah. These are like really good. These ones are super fresh. I got them from Oishi, so if you live in Las Vegas, this is the salmon roll, the tuna roll, and the salmon sushi. But yeah, so I read All Roads Lead Here, and it's basically about this girl who is like 33, and she's leaving her ex, who is this famous country singer that she used to write music for, but like he always hid her because it like didn't go with his image. So basically she was like his secret girlfriend, but they were also like supposed to get married and have kids, but he always just kind of like strung her along. And then one day I think his mom, who's like his manager, decided that she's bad for his job and then basically made him break up with her, and then they just like turned her phone off because they were together for 13 years. Long story short, her mother mysteriously went missing in the town she grew up in, and she was, I don't know if she was a foster, no, she was adopted by her family members or something, but long story short, she goes back to her hometown that her mother originally went missing in. I don't know if I'm crazy or if just like this is not spicy at all, but so she saw some ad on Craigslist to basically rent a garage apartment studio kind of thing. She goes to the place after traveling like all day. She's exhausted. She finally gets there. That's my dog. Hold on. She goes to the apartment. She's ready to like settle down for the night. She's been traveling this whole time. She finally gets there, and the guy who she thinks is her landlord is hearing about this for the first time. I guess his son was trying to like raise money to get a guitar and then rented out the apartment or the garage studio thing without him knowing. And he's like a super private guy. I think like Scorpio placements. And basically, like, he's like not okay. I don't know why this looks so dirty. Like, what is on this? I have no idea. But he's not okay with this, and he's basically like telling her, you can't stay here. And she's like, I'll give you double the amount. I'll give you triple the amount. And then eventually, like, he's just like, fine, but you have to leave by the end of the month. By the way, mind you, all roads lead here is supposed to be like a grumpy sunshine trope, forced proximity kind of. I wouldn't say enemies to lovers, but definitely like friends to lovers, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, it's very private, very closed off, very like sus of her for good reason, because he doesn't even know this person. Like his son bedded her, and his son's like a teenager. And then basically she stays there, and then she starts like settling into the town, and obviously she knows a lot like some of the people there because she used to live there previously before her mother went missing when she was a teenager. Was she a teenager or a kid? I think she was in middle school. I think like they kind of start getting a rapport with one another, and they both like kind of eventually, he's like really apprehensive about her, but she's like all bubbly and positive. And I think like basically he realizes that he has feelings for her, or that like his assumptions about her previously were wrong, and then they eventually, you know, catch feelings for one another. You know, the rest of this is going. And yeah, the rest of the book is just like him not wanting to like her, and then him eventually liking her realizing she likes him. Mind you, there's other like subplots going on, like the ex comes back, the like celebrity ex comes back, his mom comes back, and the mom's like an evil like mother-in-law kind of dynamic. And then also like the whole time she still doesn't know like if her mom died when she went hiking alone, or if she ran away or unalived herself. I don't know. So you find that out too in the book, like what happens to her mother. And I rated it 3 stars because I just personally feel like it was overhyped. I feel like I literally just said this in my last book video, but I feel like it's very much like about 2 white people who have heritage or roots from a small town, and their biggest goals in life are basically to get married and have kids. And like it's relatable because I did understand how like women have a lot of, or people with uteruses have a lot of pressure on them to basically, you know, have children by a certain age and things like that. So I definitely could relate to like those kinds of pressures, and I appreciated that the character was in her 30s, even though she didn't act like it. But my only gripe was like, it just felt like her whole purpose in life was just to have children and get married. And I get that when we all get to a certain age, we probably do like get really focused on those things, but I just felt like this book was just like for very like small town people who maybe want to lead very simple lives. And I didn't hate this book. I actually was engaged throughout this book with the plots and the subplots. Like I was really here for this girl's narration and character development, and how she's like finding out who she is after being in such a long-term relationship, and you know, learning who she is and things about that. But I also felt like the like progression between this like these 2 characters who just, the guy really doesn't like her at all, and then he just immediately all of a sudden gets like all obsessive with her, and then he kept calling her Angel throughout the book too. Like even when they weren't like that friendly with one another, he would be like, oh, Angel. And at first she had a thing with being like, oh, he's calling me by a different name, but I knew it was like a pet name thing, and it just gave me the ick, quite honestly. It was very like cheesy and corny and like middle-aged like white people. And I'm not knocking white people, you guys. Like my dad is Filipino, but he's also white, so like colonizer blood. But I'm gonna have to edit this out. But I just feel like it was just so corny, and it was so hard to relate to these characters and like want to root for their relationship when you were just like cringing the whole time that this was progressing. And it's weird because Mariana Zapata writes these slow burns, right? So it's like, I just feel like she does it wrong. And granted, I've only read Wall of Winnipeg and now, what is this book called? All Roads Lead Here. But then I just feel like she doesn't write the books. Like half of the book is literally like the guy for some reason is always like emotionally unintelligent and doesn't know how to communicate properly, and he's always standoffish and completely repulsed by this this like overly bubbly, cheery girl character, which you guys already know how I feel about that dynamic. But for like throughout half of the book, and then one day he just like flips a switch and just becomes like primitively obsessed with this character. So it just feels very like whiplash, I guess, from like the character development, because it's like it's not really slow burn if it's just hot, cold, and then ice cold, and then like super hot 1 second. It doesn't really like add up or make sense. So that's basically where I'm at with that book. Feeling kind of drunk. Okay, you guys asked me some astrology questions, although some of you were just trying to get like free readings out of a Q&A for YouTube, but that's fine. I can't blame you for shooting your shot. Astro_closet wrote, my 12th house perfection year scares me. Okay, I don't know if like everyone's already heard this story a billion times or not, or just I repeat myself in different places and like you've never heard this before. But my 12th house perfection year, basically for people who don't know what I'm talking about, every age that you turn, a different house in your chart basically lights up and becomes active throughout that entire year. So, for example, when you're 23, your 12th house is activated. And based on what planet rules that house, themes around that planet and that house are kind of entwined. Also, mind you, you're not just looking at that house, you're looking at where that planet is in your chart. So like, for example, I'm an Aries rising. When I was in a 12th house perfection year, I had Jupiter in the 12th house, Jupiter ruling the 12th house, excuse me. But my Jupiter itself was in the 8th house, ruled by Scorpio. So themes surrounding both a Jupiter perfection year and a 8th house perfection year were kind of intertwined in a way. Where was I going with this? I shouldn't drink so much. I feel like I only had a few sips though. Comment below and tell me how many sips I had. Long story short with perfections, if you have a day chart or a night chart, and if the planets are malefic or benefic based on your day or night chart. So, okay, if you have a day chart, your most, take this with a grain of salt, positive planet is Jupiter, and your most challenging planet is Mars. Now, if you have a night chart like me, your most positive planet is Venus, and your most challenging planet is Saturn. Long story short, I was in a Jupiter year. That is a benefic planet, yes, but it wasn't my designated benefic planet. However, this year was challenging because I did feel themes around isolation and people like backstabbing me a lot at work. I was getting made fun of a lot at Starbucks, and everyone like hated me, would try to get me fired, didn't like me, mocked that I always talked about astrology. And even my boyfriend was like, you're annoying me, you're being clingy, you need a hobby. So I made an astrology Twitter account, and within that year, within that Jupiter perfection year, it blew up, and people were like, can I buy a reading from you? I didn't even know people sold readings. I didn't even know people would want to give me money for that. So basically, my 12th house perfection year was actually, yeah, there was some isolation. Yeah, there were some 8th house themes. Like, I did go through some pet losses, but my career basically started that year. So it was a very positive year for me. Long story short, at Astro_closet, you need to not be afraid of your 12th house year. Based on the rulerships, okay, like, yeah, if you're in a malefic year, I'd say brace yourself or prepare, but I wouldn't be just solely scared off of a 12th house year, more so like nervous about if it's just a malefic activation. And even then, like, you've gone through malefic activated years and not even realized it, you can get through a 12th house year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if anything, you just learn to like cultivate your solitude more and like love yourself. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. I really hope this is a spicy dip. I feel like every time I've dipped, it has not been spicy. I've literally put all of my wasabi into the soy sauce, and I'm gonna give you a big portion of wasabi. And I have not felt like I've had a single dunk of wasabi. Granted, you know what? I should just start individually putting it on the rolls because I think it would be spicier that way. At World Meat J said, Any insight to the rest of the year for Scorpio ascendants would be great. Okay, so let me do math in my head, and I've had wine, so... Oh, and I haven't shaved. Scorpio 8. Okay, so your biggest activations for 2022 Scorpio risings are your 1st house, 7th house, and 8th house. Actually, let me backtrack. It could also be your 6th house as well. So hear me out. Your 1st and 7th house have the eclipses and the nodes, which are major, major events. Ancient astrologers used to theorize like very like life-fulfilling prophecies would happen during these times. People stepping into like their life's purpose, people living out like things that are meant to happen in their lifetime, like big major events happen usually for people with the ascendant or descendant getting eclipsed or having nodes sitting there. With that being said, your biggest recollections this year are really just figuring out who you are, that you can't always rely on everyone for support, and that you have to do things yourself. Meanwhile, at the same time, when the solar or lunar eclipse is happening, you're kind of getting the reverse message kind of given to you. Your ascendant has the south node sitting there, so it's like swallowing up your ascendant in a sense, and it's minimizing your sense of self-assertion, independence, not giving a fuck if people say things about you. Meanwhile, your 7th house of relationships is being expanded upon with that north node. And so a lot of the eclipse, you're kind of going through themes of like needing to remember that you shouldn't put so much value and worth into how other people perceive you while simultaneously doing that. If that makes sense. And then also you'll have the Gemini Mars retrograde, which I believe is a 6-month transit. So God help me, because that's literally my chart ruler and planet. I have an Aries rising and Gemini Mars 29 degrees, so about to get my shit wrecked. But you're going to have the Gemini Mars and the Gemini Mercury retrograde, which then will ingress into Taurus before exiting retrograde, at least in May. May, actually, I don't know when that ends. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But long story short, a lot of themes around your 6th house. Jupiter ingresses into Aries in your 6th house, and that's very positive for your work. Implementing better health goals, implementing better structure in your daily routine, and also mental health prioritization. But then you have those funky retrograde transits of Gemini in your 8th house. So like watch your money, watch your credit cards. Be careful with going into business with people that you're friends with or signing big contracts for things right now. But at the same time, this could also be a really good time or opportunity to reflect on how you've been spending your money and then save it. Yeah. This is going to be such a long video. Like, I'm not prepared. Okay. 12th house placements and 12th house signs. That's like a whole video, but I did talk about the 12th house already. Someone said, what got you into astrology and tarot? So what got me into astrology was in 2014. I've always been obsessed with astrology. I've always been obsessed with sun signs. I think this will actually be my last question, maybe. This is at bed ob do boom. I've always liked sun signs, but I didn't know that people had natal charts until 2014. And then from 2014 until technically 2018, I was studying the natal wheel and like placements, but I was admittedly looking more at like individual signs and planets and houses versus like cohesively involving how everything goes together, which was my first mistake. And then in 2017 was when my Twitter happened and when it blew up and I had a content creation job basically, and then 2018 was when I started selling readings. So literally like 4 years of studying, then selling readings. Tarot is a little different. I think I started tarot in 2019. I did get some spice in that bite. I'm very happy. Ooh, yes. Although I really need to watch my sodium. I've been getting like heart palpitations. But where was I going with this? 2019, I started doing tarot readings genuinely mainly because I was curious about them. There's no like spiritually sound response about how I got into tarot. I really liked YouTube videos that were tarot at the time. Well, specifically the only one I've ever really liked and watched has been Stargirl the Practical Witch. I think I've seen another tarot creator, I think it was like Gaia-like or something. I thought they were really good too, but there's just no one else that I've been like interested to watch other than Stargirl the Practical Witch. So with that being said, I was curious. I wanted to try it, and so I added it as like a free feature to my Patreon readings, like an extra question / answer or reading each month for people that were already subscribed. And I kind of taught myself by forcing myself to do like multiple tarot spreads for people every day, which I know some people would argue, hey, that's unethical, but I think ethics are very subjective, especially in 2022 and social media and content creation and spirituality in general. So I feel like that's just how I did it. I love tarot, but I do not pull tarot cards for myself. Mainly because I'm pretty agnostic as a person. I believe in tarot and astrology, but it's like I'm very skeptical of everything in general, and I always take everything with a grain of salt. And this is why like a lot of my old content used to be very like shock value based. And I wasn't trying to like scare people. I just was so fascinated in like the darkest or edgiest parts of astrology back then that I didn't feel the need to, I don't know, I wasn't intimidated by it because I half of me was very skeptic about it. So I was taking everything with a grain of salt. And then eventually I would move away from that because I realized that I was scaring people, and that's not what I was trying to do. But with that being said, I take everything with a grain of salt, but I am open to believing things. I just don't give anything 100% of my belief, if that makes sense. It's just how I operate. But also with the tarot readings, I'm just neurotic and I have anxiety, and I can't handle knowing or theorizing my own cards because I don't know how much of I'm projecting what I want to see. And so that's something I doubt